everyone. I see a few people joined early. We've got Debbie and Stacy, Tilla, and the Warden, and Sheena's Ketovore Life, and Hoofing It. Great to see everybody. I know other people may be late because I saw just now that Two Crazy Ketos went live with their BBBE update. So, hey, Air Fry and Auntie, good to see you. Do you mind if I add you on as a mod? That would be really helpful. I think that I've done some things so that it won't be so much. And Attila is here and active. Hey, Gigi's here. So, but and OP has joined us. Thank you. I'm gonna do that. Woohoo! That was easier than I thought. Hadn't done that before. So I have so many things tonight, and why I picked like the most complicated stuff to go through on a night when I know it's going to be like all crazy, I don't know. But for a project manager, I can manage everybody else except myself. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to make a quick air fryer frittata, and I'm also going to make a Café de Olla, which will be the first time that we're doing a straight up coffee direct in the brew pot. I know we've done the e-brick with the Turkish coffee, and it's a similar sort of process. Wow, I see Cool Kid Keto has joined us, and hey, Hungry Heath has joined us, and Cool Kid Keto. So glad to see everybody. And so let me talk a little bit first about the coffee I'm going to use tonight. It's a Lego brand coffee, and they are brew out of Colorado is where they roast the beans, but they import them from Chiapas, Mexico. You might remember that, and maybe not. I mean, why would you remember all my coffee stuff? It's kind of a lot. I was talking about our local brewer, Brioso, and one of my favorite coffees comes from there, and that's their Chiapas Mexican blend. But they were out, so I went to this brand, and it's good. I don't find that their roast is as good as Brioso, because Brioso tends to take it a little bit darker. Oh, excuse me, but it's pretty good, and I do like Chiapas blend in general, and since I'm making a Mexican coffee, it seemed like a good choice for it. I will tell you, in my family making Café de Olla, we don't always stick to we use any old coffee, but a lot of times our stuff they bring from back home and they pick it up in Wadas. So it's a pretty flexible. This one is a light roast, but you can really do anything. You probably don't want to get a super dark Arabica bean roast because it will start to get bitter very quickly, and we'll talk a little bit about why. Let me just set this aside. I have a lot of stuff, so I'm a little scattered and not as organized as I would like to be, but also, I think I'm a little bit almost on the hangry side because the frittata takes up a lot of my intake for the day, so I've been waiting a while. And let's see, some more people. Hey, Lisa. Oh, and thank you for the compliment there. Yeah, hitting the 200 was really cool. So that's good. So, but what I have here for the frittata is I've got myself a buttered dish. And ahead of time, I fried up, I actually baked my bacon to get it nice and crispy, and then I cut it all up and cooled down. I prefer in a frittata type thing to use fresh bacon, because if you get like the bacon crumbs that you can get from like a Costco or Sam's Club in the big bag, yes, it's all bacon and it's really good, but the flavor is not as strong as you get from a fresh strip. But you do want to cook your meats ahead of time and let them cool completely, because otherwise it interacts with the eggs strangely. And then I have 2 ounces of ground beef. It's one person, so 3 strips of bacon and 2 ounces, and then I've got 3 beaten eggs. I ran out of clear dishes, so you'll have to trust me that it's eggs here, and you'll see it in a minute. And then I also have salt and pepper. Now, I promised some people that I would put this together so that it would be compliant with all of the people who are doing the BBBE. And so normally I would add some very spicy chili flakes, and I would also add a lot of cheese, because you know how I love cheese. So that's the main thing, so that's why it's a pretty stripped down recipe. So I'm gonna layer my meats first. I put in the ground beef in the bottom because it kind of gives it a good solid foundation, and just sort of give it a little shake to level it out. And then I layer in the bacon, and since some of it got stuck to the fat, I pull that out so I can get the fat in there too. And as you can see, well, not if I don't show you, you can't see. It fills up most of the bowl, and that's okay. It's about a little more than half full now. So it'll fit. Now then, because the eggs sink down in and go, oh, thank you. And I see more people have joined. We've got Reichman has joined, and let's see. Basically, you just add the eggs in and you pour over the top, and as you can see, it sinks down into the ingredients and fills in all the gaps. So nothing seems to get floaty or anything like that. Bring it forward for you. Oh, there we go. So you can see it all gets covered. Now, let me get my air fryer on. The air fryer is going to be at, well, let me see, temperature 325. And then we're going to put it for 15 minutes. We'll check it halfways. Now, one thing you want to do when you put eggs in the air fryer is you need to cover it. So I've actually, just in case the eggs rise up and touch it, I buttered my tin foil, and you just stick that on and you fold it so that it doesn't fly off in the air fryer. You want to make sure that you get it good and snug. And that is also why you need to use a bowl where it gets full but not over full. Oh, I'm going to take this off because, you guys, I forgot to sprinkle the salt and pepper on it. There we go. And you just sprinkle that on top. You can mix it in. I like it on top, and I'll show you too. That'll sink in and get a good. All right, now I smash this on. And I reset my thing again because it didn't take. There we go. We'll just let that preheat for a minute while we talk about the other part here. So Café de Olla. This is a traditional Mexican coffee, and it's boiled in a pot. Usually the pot is a terracotta pot, but I don't have one because the last one I had broke, and they're expensive. Like, when I say expensive, a small one is like $60. They're gorgeous and they're amazing and they cook great, but they're pricey. I see Rhonda's joined us. Hi. And lots of birthday reminders because it was the warden. The warden, your birthday present is that I will not sing to you happy birthday, and you should be very grateful for that. Let me just set these aside. So, and let's see. Oh, that's it. And I see Raikkonen is asking Air Fry and Auntie about her jaw. For those of you who don't know, she's had some dental work, and it's been quite the adventure. I do hope it's feeling better. You should know that if you want to make steamed eggs, that's a really nice, some nice thing you can do, and it's very easy to eat. And the warmth and soothing will be also welcome. So, all right. Anyways, let me get going with this. So the Café de Olla is boiled in the pot, but I also like when you guys can see things, and I like when I can see things. So there we go. I wanted to make it level. All right. So we're going to use my clear ramen pot. If you don't have one of these, they're awesome fun. It's a clear glass, and you boil your noodles in there so you can see all of your vegetables, and makes kind of a fun eating experience. They're temperature safe, so you can cook with them on the stove or any surface. I don't know that I would put it on the Blackstone griddle. That seems worrisomely extreme. But we can go ahead and we can turn this on, and I'm going to add in water from the kettle. You'll start with room temperature water, and that's super important. Not all the way full, but pretty full. We're going to make a large coffee tonight, and that's fine, because the other thing with the Café de Olla is that when you have leftovers, you just put it in the fridge, and then tomorrow you have it iced. So Café de Olla is boiled in the pot with spices, and like the spices are usually cinnamon, a clove, a star anise, and it's also a sweet drink with with an unrefined sugar called piloncillo. Now on keto we can't have piloncillo, so I made a replica. Now it's not exactly, because the piloncillo is it's not brown sugar. It looks like it. It comes in a solid hard cone, and I sort of wish that I had picked one up, but I can't imagine having it in my house. So, but it comes like in a cone, and it's dark brown, and a lot of times people think that it's a very solid hardened brown sugar, but it's actually unrefined cane sugar. And the reason that they love it so much is because it gives everything a very nice sort of almost a molasses sort of touch to the flavor. But what I did was I shaped myself a solid little piece here that is sucre gold, which is a brown sugar substitute, and I mixed it with allulose because that will give it kind of a little bit of that slightly thicker texture. And they put that right into the water, and as you can see here, it'll blend up. But the other thing now is we also want the spices. It's getting too boily. And I have here the star anise. You only need one because they're very strong, and especially if you don't like licorice, you don't want to use too much, but you do want that flavor because it's the right spice, and it brings a good smell and flavor to the pot. So you throw that in. You also need cinnamon. Now, I always tell people you need to use a Mexican cinnamon, which is the Ceylon cinnamon. And it kind of is, if you pay attention to a lot of cinnamon, the Ceylon cinnamon is a little bit stronger and a little bit spicier. So it adds something to the flavor that you don't necessarily get with the American cinnamon or from other regions, the cassia cinnamon. If you use the cassia cinnamon, you'll kind of get maybe not as much of the zippy spice part of the cinnamon, which you really look for. And I will tell you, don't use ground cinnamon. You'll make a mess, and it will be very unpleasant later. Then the last thing that you add is cloves. And now cloves, you want to be careful because they can get very numbing for many people. But if you're used to that and you like it, you can add a little more Most people only use a couple. I'm gonna put a little, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm very extreme. I love me some clove, and I don't mind if my tongue gets a little bit of that buzz, but a lot of people do mind, and I do not. So I cannot reseal my bag. There it goes. And now here's a now other than my sugar substitutes, the other thing I'm gonna do that's not traditional to some people, but people from some regions do incorporate orange. It's very common for them to throw the peel right in, and then at the end they squeeze orange juice right in. But obviously I don't want to do that. You do wind up straining this later, and there's my little spoon. So I throw a little bit of what I have are some dehydrated lemon zest, and I do sprinkle that in because I love that. I love that little pop of citrus. So let's take a look here with the comments and see where we're at while this boils. You need to leave this to boil for a little bit so that everything infuses. But you can see just from the change of the water that it's definitely picking up some of the coloring from the allulose and the sucrin gold, as well as from the star anise and the cinnamon. Okay, so Cool Kid Keto is feeding their pets. And let's see. Let me scroll up a little bit. Mostly it looks like a lot of hellos and back and forth and happy birthdays, and I'm fine with that. You do want this to boil, but you don't want it to boil too hard, so I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. And then, let's see. Oh, and so both the warden says they love star anise, and Sheena's Ketovore Life says that they like cinnamon and clove, like similar to chai tea spicing. Very true. You know, a lot of chai tea, some of the better chai teas I like have sprinkles of black pepper in it. It makes me wonder sometime how it would be if I put some peppercorns in this mix too. But already bad enough that I'm using the sugar substitute. I feel like my grandma is rolling over in her grave and just, she's got that look. Like, what are you doing? But, you know, there's something to be said for also breaking out of your tradition. So, anyway, so I told you about the piloncillo and how I was substituting it. It doesn't stay as solid as a piloncillo, which is why that takes a while to melt. But, oh, and Caboodle Brie has joined us. He says he bet it smells amazing, and it does. I will tell you also that at the holiday times, we often just throw this mix onto the stove to hydrate the air a little bit and make the house smell nice. So that's another tip too. Yeah, you know, I don't know that really in Mexican culture that we use a lot of cardamom. I saw that Pam Giles has joined us and says they've used cardamom in a lot of things, and I think that would probably taste really good. It'd be very complimentary. Maybe even an allspice. You could get all kinds of crazy, but as much deviation as I do, I try to stick to a lot of tradition. Plus, it does lead back to my childhood. So, a little bit more about the Café de Olla. You should know. So, the reason it's called Café de Olla is because it's coffee in a pot. The olla is a pot, and the traditional terracotta I brought up is called the olla de barro. The olla de barro, and so Café de Olla, it literally means coffee in a pot. Like, it doesn't really get any more explicit than that. So, oh, I see Pat has joined us as well. I love it. Smells really nice. It's another time where I tell you I wish that we had smell-o-vision. And I have to put my frittata into the air fryer. It's ready now. There we go. And we just leave that be to cook, and we wait on this. It's a lot of waiting tonight. So that's good, because now I can tell you all my nerdy things about the beverage. So the other thing too about the terracotta pot is a lot of people say that it helps give the coffee a more earthy taste, but I'll tell you that I don't necessarily think that's true. I've never really tasted a big difference whether I'm using just a regular saucepan on the stove or a clay pot, or today like I'm using the glass. So sometimes I think that might be a little bit of a psychological thing. So, oh, and I forgot one more thing about my fake piloncillo. Because I didn't have any molasses extract, when I'm mixing the allulose with the sucrin gold, I usually sometimes will squeeze a couple drops of the molasses extract just to give it the moisture, which helps hold it together into a little block. But I didn't have that, and so it's not going to be exactly right. But I have this little sample, and I know you can't read it on the screen, but it's allulose, and it's a fake honey. So I put a 1/4 teaspoon of the allulose honey into it and mix that in, and so that helped bring it together. And while it's not exactly the same, but it'll help give it a little bit of that darker molasses flavor. So, oh, I see Gretchen Don Shredder has joined us, and yes, when he says that it looks like some rice water, but so to reiterate, this is the spice blend. It's some sweetener, the allulose with sucrin gold. I've got some dehydrated orange zest, anise, clove, and Ceylon cinnamon. Ceylon cinnamon is also known as Mexican cinnamon. So after we let these boil for a little bit and get good and nice and spicy and well infused, that'll be the next step. You can see I'm going to bring it just to a boil for a few more minutes. You want to let it boil a good 6 to 10 minutes. So, and I always have my water. San Pellegrino, they don't sponsor me, but they are cheap at Costco, so they're the drink of the night. So it is starting to get very vigorous, and I do feel like I am comfortable with where it's infused. And I see a mediator has joined us, so that's always nice. I'm excited to see some future things there. I've really enjoyed mediators post on their Blackstone cooking. I'm a little bit worried that my Blackstone's got some rust going on because I haven't touched it in a little bit because it's been so cold, and like I just couldn't face going out there to use the Blackstone when it was like 12 with a wind whipping. It's like I'm out there in the cold a lot, but that was just a little bit too far. So So the next step here with this, now that it's boiled and we've been here for a few minutes, is that I'm going to cut the heat. And in fact, we can actually take it all the way off this, and I can put my little stove away. And get my little, the handle got warm. And the reason you do that is where I was talking about how we didn't want the coffee to taste bad. And so we take this off because if you have it boiling and you throw the coffee right in there, this is what I call the Starbucks effect. It will brew and it'll be super, super strong, but it will also taste burnt and bitter. So, oh no, if it's got any rust, my Blackstone, if it has any rust, I'm just gonna take a griddle brick to it and you scour it off, and then you do the seasoning process all over. So, but thankfully the very low digits in wind eased up a bit today, and so that's a good thing. So, but we wait here and we just let this settle a little bit, because I know that there are times when we use boiling water, but we don't want that burnt taste. You want it to be a nice strong taste. Now, this is a smaller pot, I will tell you that, and this is average for a couple people, maybe, you know, a family with 3. Normally Mexicans do this in a great big terracotta pot, and they make a large, huge amount of coffee. And you do that because it's a big family thing. Everybody comes together, everybody is having the coffee. Sometimes they make nightcaps by adding some liquor. Kids have it. They don't have it if there's liquor in it, of course. You keep that separate. So it really brings everybody together, especially in the wintertime or after it's been a long day when you've been working, you know, especially a lot of us in the fields and things like that. So just giving a quick peek here over at my frittata, and it's good, going well. We'll be taking the cover off in a few minutes. I know it's confusing going back and forth, so please do ask questions, or if I've gone too squirrely and got it too mixed up for you and you need me to bring it back in, because I know that I'm all over the board. It's like I can only be so organized in one part of my life at a time, and all my energy to being organized went into my big work deployment, which, by the way, so far has gone exceedingly well. So that's awesome. So just letting this settle. But the easy part is, let's see. Oh, and OP has to leave for a Zoom call. I hope that's not the Watch Autumn call. I wasn't clear on whether that was last week and I missed it, or if it was today. I got confused, and I'm like, well, that's all right. These things happen. It smells really good. So now you can, I don't know, I'm going to bring this close. You can see how when I said I let it cool, while it was boiling and super hot, most of the herbs and spices were floating at the top. And now, except for the anise, the cinnamon and the cloves and the orange zest has sunk to the bottom. That's what tells me I can add my coffee now. I have a lot of coffee, coffee enough for a full pot. And I was actually grinding it like right before in a panic because I was running behind on the schedule. But there you go. And basically that is all there is to it now. Now we let it brew. And unlike the other times when we're making coffees where we're doing infusion and you only want to agitate the crust, here we're giving it a nice stir. And you guys, I forgot to bring my timer down. Or, oh wait, no I didn't. There it is. You need a dirty spoon rest though. So, and that's it. Now we're just gonna let that sit. And I get my timer, it's sitting over here. Clear. And start. So we're gonna let it go for 6 minutes, and then I'm gonna give it a stir. And at that point you can do one of two things. Either you can start straining it to serve it, or if you want it to be stronger, you wait another 2 minutes. It just goes from regular strength to extra strength in just that fast. So now it's time to check on the frittata. Move my water out of the way so it doesn't spill. And you take the cover off. So it's very raw. I may need to add extra time, but we're gonna let it go. I'm going to keep an eye on it. And now one thing to tell you, if you have a toaster oven and sort of air fryer like I do, and I have the Instant Pot Omni Plus, you want to keep an eye, because if you need to add extra time, you want to do that before it ends, or else it gets confused and wants to preheat all over again. So yes, very coarse ground, because we're going to strain it, but like almost all the other coffees we've used have been either fine, very fine, or medium fine, and this is the first time we've had a brew where we're using coarse grind. I didn't need all of the coffee that I ground, and I don't know if it's clear enough on there, but you can see how chunky it is. It's really, really big. I would say, well, I don't even know what to compare it to. It's really big. It's like, it almost looks like dirt, the loose dirt that you get, the topsoil. So, yeah, I feel so impatient, and sometimes when we have brews and I have like a lot of elaborate steps, someone will usually mention, oh, this seems like so much work. And like, this is the one that actually is a lot of work, and where the other ones were more just interesting to watch. But it's so good. So, oh, Two Crazy Ketos has joined us. Hey, I missed your BBBE update, but you can share about it here. I hope it's going awesome. It always looks so good. Oh, look at that. I've got another one to... Give me a second to moderate this. Let's see, hide user. So, I guess they found another thing I'm gonna have to add to the restricted words list, which took me forever to find. But let's see. I'm just looking and said, yep, with Efrain Auntie, and Raikwen was asking about some questions, but it was just about the bots, so we won't worry too much about it. Let's see. Oh, and Cool Kid Keto has been, let's see. Oh, has been selling, you've been selling Peel and Seal? That sounds interesting. I don't know what part of the country you're in, so. Oh, and Cool Kid Keto says they looked at some Nespresso machines today, but didn't quite pull the trigger. You know, I always think that I might want another thing, but I never quite. I have so many devices, I literally don't need one. It's just that it makes a tasty, very convenient cup, and I don't really need that. I'm just poking in here to see where it's at, because I've got 3 minutes left. But it is way wiggly. It is getting a crust on top. But I'm going to add another several minutes here. I added an extra 3 minutes to my frittata. In case you're wondering, the reason that I put the cover on the first is if you've used air fryers, you know that the top always gets very crispy on things that you cook. And that's definitely one of the benefits. But when it's eggs, it will definitely get way super brown. So that's why you cover it and then you take it off halfway, so that the top gets crispy and brown, but not over browned. If you like it to be super dark brown, it's not burnt, it's just very, very crunchy and crispy, by all means, you don't even have to cover it. But that is my preference, to cover it and wait halfway. With the frittatas, the other thing I mentioned was we just use straight up eggs with our beef and the bacon in there, and then the salt and pepper. If you are not doing BBBE, add a couple tablespoons of heavy cream into those beaten eggs, and that will help with the texture. So that will work. Oh, also in Texas. Okay. A Cool Kid Keto says they're in the Houston area. Okay. So, sure, a lot of people in Houston. So, let's see. I'm just trying to catch up on the comments here. Let me see for a minute. Oh, and Hungry Creek says that the Cool Kid Keto lives close to them. Yes, it does sound like you need a meetup. I'm in favor of those. So I'm going to talk about the next step with this. Let's see. Because my timer just went off. So let me catch that. Now, because I'm going to let it get extra strength, I want you to know I'm going to break the crust and just give it a little light stir. It looks so perfect that it's almost ashamed right now that I'm not just going to be able to drink it and it has to be strained. I'm going to hold this up for you guys to see the nice crema development on the top. It's just gorgeous, and we're going to take that all out of there. I don't know if you know, but despite the fact that crema gets a lot of talk in coffee, it actually is pretty irrelevant to your coffee. I like the way it looks though, and I really tend to enjoy it just right in the espresso, but actually the crema is really just a symptom of the heat and the oils from the bean. So it actually is not something significant in the flavor of the coffee. So if you ever do an espresso and you don't see like the great crema, sometimes people will tell you that's a sign that the espresso is not good. Don't listen to them. Taste it. And that is what will tell you whether your espresso is delicious or not. So the next step for the Café de Olla is to strain. And I have a carafe here. I don't know if I'm going to strain it all right now. I want to get enough so that I can enjoy my cup. But when you strain it, you can pour it through. Some people just use the regular sieve strainer, and they don't worry about any little bits that would go through there, and that's fine. Some of them will put the cheesecloth in their strainer to make sure it gets a little more refined. I have I'm just going all non-traditional 100%. I have a net strainer. It says net, but actually it's a cloth. And this is actually a brewer of sorts that you do a pour over in, but it's just fine cloth. If any of you have used those nut bags or the cheese bags, it's actually fairly similar. But you prepare it by moistening it so everything can flow through. And I like it because it gets very ultra strained out and gives me a very smooth cup. So I'm just going to pop that on there. And I'm going to leave that here. And all you do is you scoop right into the coffee. And if anyone wonders about whether the coffee is going to cool down too much, the answer is no, because that water was boiling for a long time. And you need to definitely make sure you actually want it to cool down a little bit to mellow. Now, if you were not keto, this would be where you would be doing things like squeezing in the orange juice and preparing the cup, things like that. But for my case, we're just going to strain some coffee. And if you get a lot of stuff in here, sometimes you got to pull it out so it can keep straining. But that's the only downside to this particular pot, is that it would be hard to pour directly from the pot because it doesn't come with a spout. They expect you to eat your soup right in the pot, which is fine, I guess. I mean, it is why I got it. It's such a fun novelty. Okay, while that continues to drip, I'm going to check my frittata once more. Let me just give it a poke to see the inside. All right, it's good. I still have 2 minutes left from the 3 that I added. So it came in right at that 17-minute mark. And there you go. I'm kind of mashing it a little bit, but that's okay. I hope you can see it. It's hard to tell on the screen what the lights show and what they don't show. But it's nice and lovely on top. Some of the bacon has floated to the top. The ground beef has mixed into the middle. The top is nice and crispy. And because I used the salt and pepper on top, it's right there. But I think you know that we all love our salt. And so I have one more thing, and that is my flake salt. I love flake salt, so I have a little bit of it here, and I'm going to throw that on the top to finish it. And just let that cool for a minute. And that is it. That is it for the frittata. As soon as it cools down enough that I can put a piece in my mouth, I am going to, because I am so hungry. I'm going to pour myself off some of the coffee before I keep straining so that I can enjoy that. And then we'll chat some more. And I promise I'll go back and we'll catch up on comments and all of that fun stuff. All right, so there's my cup. And you can see it is a gorgeous, gorgeous brew. Dark and clear and lovely, and one little butter smear on my glass. There we go. Oh. Now I will tell you, if you're not used to some very unique flavors, it might be very shocking to you. For me, it just took me back. It took me back to days like a lot of my family has passed away, and I don't have a lot of contact with them anymore. There's not many of us left. So, you know, the long gone, and we scattered. We stayed down in the Southwest for a really long time, and about the time that I went off to university, my brother joined the military, and my other sister got married to someone in California, and the rest of the brothers all, you know, a couple of them went into mining, and some of them moved away to ranch, and a couple of them went back to Mexico. So, whereas we had everybody in one spot for a long time, and we had that very traditional, everybody comes together every day, now we're all far and spread apart. So it just does, it really brings back that warmth and nostalgia. And it makes me feel good, especially on a day like today when it's been very tough. I keep straining while we chat. Give me a minute to throw some more in here. I'm looking forward to it because it means that this evening I'll throw it in the fridge and have myself a really nice iced drink in the morning. A little pick-me-up. In the old days, there would be no such thing because we would be drinking this all evening, and you'd be adding in your alcohol for the grown-ups, and everybody would be dancing and singing and being grateful for all of the great things during the day. So now the important thing is that we have not had a lot of history lately. So just so you know, what's the M word? Mediator said I said the M word and then made a vomit emoji. I don't know what that means. I probably do know what it means, and I'm just not putting it together right now. But let's see. All right, here we are. So that's the meetup. And Mediator says they live in the slums of Texas. It's not the slums. But then let's see, down in the south of Texas, the warden says they got their free nitro cold brew from Starbucks, and a free drink at Dutch Brothers. Yes, that's my favorite part on the birthdays, is my free coffees from the certain brewers around here. So let's see. Air Frying Auntie says it looks good. Cool Kid Keto says their parents grew up in the Texas Panhandle, and their mom refers it to the armpit of Texas. Oh, Cool Kid Keto, a funny thing about that. That's what I call my hometown. I don't know if anyone would know about it, but I grew up in a town called Lordsburg, New Mexico, and it is in the very, very, very southwest corner of New Mexico. It is as far in the southwest corner as you can get. Any further and then you're in Mexico, so, or Arizona, I guess, if you go the other way. But that's what we called it, is the armpit of hell, actually, because, yeah, we're right off the railroad tracks. It was literally just a little pit stop for the railroad, really. It's like some hotels and restaurants, so railroad people, military, and miners, because we're about an hour and a half south from Silver City and the copper mine. So yeah, a lot of miners and stuff. So yep. Let's see. Pam says the Hungry Heath needs to do a Friday night get together to share what everybody, so that Hans and Heath can do a cook off. That would be fun to watch. I vote yes. And then more talk about the humidity. So, and Sheena's Ketovore is asking what's a nitro. So Sheena, in coffee, they found a way to make a nitro cold brew coffee. So it's the same process for the nitro beer kegs, but instead it's coffee, and it is, I don't know, something about the process. It becomes so smooth, and it is super, super strong, but it is incredible. Nitro cold brew, I'm a big fan. Let me see if I can get some more coffee strained. Oops, I spilled some. See, that's why I said, I know I should have scooped it, but that's why I have a cloth. And at least you guys get to see I'm real here, just like everybody else. I'm try to shortcut and make messes and do things the wrong way and the way we're not supposed to. Let's see. Oh, and then Pam says if they did the cook-off, we could vote for the best looking meal. That would be lots of fun. I think we could even add a prize to it. So, let's see. Oh, I lost the track again. I am sorry, guys. I don't mean to be so chaotic tonight. Oh, and Mediator says they like their nitro cold brew no longer cold, but heated up hot. I haven't actually tried that. I've always had it cold. It's really good. Yeah, and I agree. I'm just like the warden. The warden says that at Starbucks, nitro cold brew is the only way to go for the cold coffee. I agree. It's the best thing to have there. Let's see. And let's see. Oh, and the warden tells Mediator that they think only Dutch Brothers has the hot nitro brew. That's probably, I don't know if I've seen it, but I'm sure if I asked any of our local shops to do it, they would. Oh, and Mediator said the M word means moist. I don't even know what I said moist about, but oh well. Look, now everybody is saying moist. Oh well. Anyways, hey, so I don't know, is that the thing that we're going to have here? It's balls on 2 crazy ketos, but it's moist over at the Radical Geek channel? I don't know. We'll see. And I've missed a comment somewhere where it says someone is wild. I don't know who's wild, but that sounds good to me. I enjoy wild sometimes. Then, oh, and Hunger Keith says if we go on the low-carb cruise next year, we can host a barbecue party beforehand. That's a good idea. I'm really hoping that would be awesome. Oh, Lisa says they saw Guar 2 times back in the early 90s. And they were crazy shows. Alright, I'm missing some context. I'm sorry, guys. But now I'm just reading a little bit. Oh, and the 90s were fun times. I don't know. Oh, and Hungry Heath reiterates that Guar is wild. So, yep. So I've just about got all of the coffee strained. There's a little bit left. I'm going to risk spilling some more to get the rest of it into here. So I'm sure everybody will be happy that we get to wash my tablecloths again. But there we go. All set, and I'll just get my refuse out of there later. I'll set this up front to finish dripping. I'm going to bring my frittata here and put it right over my stain. It's very spicy and delicious. So that's everything for the brewing and the frittata. So, but again, I said I promised you some real geekified history because we've skipped it for a while. And so I'll tell you about the history and where this crazy mix started. I really feel, because Air Frying Auntie is asking what guar is, and I really think that people who have been to the shows there in the chat really ought to take a moment to do the description. Oh, and Air Frying Auntie says, yes, that's why I have a tablecloth that I can wash. 100%. I actually looked online about maybe trying to buy a couple more because only having two makes a lot of a very frequent laundry. And I thought I might try maybe even getting like a dark blue one or a purple, but I didn't know how they'd play with the green screens. All right. So really now, the origins of the Café de Olla. Café de Olla came about during the Mexican Revolution. So we're way back in history again in 1910, 1920. But I have to dig into the frittata so I can show you guys. Maybe I can show you guys. It's still really hot. I'm just going to pick up this bite. Oops. There you go. It kind of just looks like a big shiny reflection on the screen. So I don't know if you're getting the texture. But I did try. And I lost a salt. There we go. It's a little bit firmer because it doesn't have the heavy cream. But it's still a really nice texture. So, okay, so the Café de Olla, I know I'm going to repeat myself again because I keep distracting myself and going all over the place. But you'll be used to that behavior in another few streams if you aren't already. So, here we are in the Mexican Revolution, 1910 to 1920. In that revolution, women played a really crucial role because they actually they carried all of the bags for the soldiers and all of the equipment, and they also did all of the camp setup and tear down. They are responsible for all of the food and beverage preps. They did first aid, and then when they could, they also fought on the front line. So these women were basically killing it there. And one of the things that they came up with was the realization that the soldiers who were doing the bulk of the fighting on the front line needed something stimulating, and also they wanted them to stay warm, and because they were gone for long days fighting, they needed something that would help with their appetite as well. And that's how they developed the very strong coffee, because they knew the caffeine would give them the energy and the stimulation. Excuse me. But that the spices would also help with the appetite suppression, as well as they have a lot of beliefs that the spices have some healing properties, and that they all help with keeping congestion and colds away. I don't know if there's really any evidence that it does that, but I will tell you that it is very soothing. And when you do have colds, cinnamon teas and stuff do feel good. So there might be something to it, but I just don't know that there's any real science behind it. It is delicious. Now, anyway, but the women were doing all of this massive effort, but because of the times, they didn't necessarily have a lot of recognition. But the coffee was taking off like wildfire, and the soldiers really loved it. And there was a nurse named Adela Perez, and Adela was really a very big advocate for getting women the recognition that they do. And as a result of all of her activity, they started calling the women who prepared the food and the coffee Adelitas. And so that is where all of that started, and people talked often, oh, the Adelitas will do this or that, and they started getting a lot of what's the right word? Recognition. And by the way, this Adela Perez, she was actually from Ciudad Juarez, which is, of course, the closest town in Mexico, right by where I grew up. So I'm going to derail again and tell you what it was like in the 80s when you had open, unfettered access to Mexico and you were just barely 20 and you were in college. You know, you could go right there. It was a short little skip from Las Cruces, and you could basically be in El Paso and you parked your vehicle and you walked right across the bridge, and then you went into all over the city and you had all this amazing food. But more when you're in college and you're all crazy, there's a lot of drinking, and all of the soldiers would be there, and you would go and you would get rip-roaring drunk, and it was fine because it was all legal. And I went to a bar there called the Cave, and it was such a novelty that you went in, and as you walked in, it would gradually, it wasn't that gradual, it would get like super, super dark, and the floor was all cattywampus, and the walls were all cave textured, and then all of a sudden you entered into a room, and it was a great big giant dance floor and then there were tables around the edge, and you would sit at a table, and you and your party would be having your normal social time. But like about every hour, all of a sudden they would stop the music for a second, and all of the wait staff would start blowing whistles, and they would take tequila shots all around to all the tables, and the last one to finish the shot, a waiter would snatch you up off the table, out of your seat, and they would go to the dance floor and they would spin you around. Can I tell you, I am so surprised that a lot more people did not get sick to their stomachs from that. Can you imagine about the third or fourth time in the night that happened? You would be completely wasted. And then of course you go home and you just walk across the bridge, and back in those days, if you were heavily intoxicated weaving your way back across the bridge, the border agents just looked at you and they were like, oh, you're American, just go. Because they could not believe what a dumbass you were. So that's one of those college stories. There you go. So here we are. Now, let's see. I'm just trying to catch back here. Oh, Hungry He says they were talking about mushrooms, which we talked about earlier, and Hans, Cool Kid Keto, is allergic to the mushrooms, so we'll have to remember that when we do meetups so that we can avoid them, because I think a lot of us enjoy them a great deal. Oh. Yeah, and Lisa says she thinks she thought the smell of this coffee was soothing, and it is. It's very nice. I'm gonna take a big bite, so continue chatting so that I can chew and have a bit. Yep, that's a winner. The only thing it needs is cheese, and that's because I always think everything needs cheese. But it's honestly perfectly delicious without it. I'm actually pleasantly surprised that how good it has been coming out without the cheese, and it kind of makes me happy about that, because it's a good alternative on days when you need to adjust things. But let me tell you about the frittata. So the frittata, this thing is 693 calories, 41.9 grams of protein, less than 1 carb. So and when I say less than 1, it's only from the eggs. The eggs are the only thing that have carbs, so it's about half a gram. And then 56.5 grams of fat from the bacon and the ground beef and the butter on the dish. You do have to count the butter because it all cooks into the frittata, so it counts. If you are a ratios person, you'll know this is 100% old school keto. It's 24% fat, 1% less than 1% carb, and 75% fat. So 24% protein, 75% fat, 1% carb. So there you go. And I know a lot of people don't like old-fashioned keto ratios, but when we talk about other ratios like 1-to-1 or 2-to-1, when we're approaching more of a maintenance phase, those are still ratios. So, oh, and hey, J-Dog has joined us. He's late because he got busy in his book. I think almost every geek can resonate with getting caught up in a book, because and especially me. I don't know, I'm pretty sure I've shared with you guys that my doctorate is actually in English literature, so I'm a 100% book nerd all the way. So, and I'm a little short on talking material because I was worried that with the migration going on that we might have to end early, but we don't, because cross your fingers, everything has been going great, and now I just have tomorrow and a little bit on Tuesday to make sure it goes good. We've got a couple pieces that could be disastrous in the morning, but that's in the morning. Everything that had to happen today has been perfect. Yay! So, man, that is so delicious. It's really good. So the next thing I will mention, though, is we'll just talk about coffee from Mexico in general. Mediator, I already said happy birthday to Shelly, and I was very clear that the best present that I could give to Shelly was for me not to sing. And I have a child who is 19, who, if they were on here, would very much confirm that it's best if I don't sing. Very early on in their age, they asked me not to do so ever again, and I guess. I don't know what it is, but I am, if it's because I don't have proper hearing in one ear, but I am just completely off key. So it's really bad. But, you know, happy birthday, Shelly. Hooray! Extra. I mentioned that I had the Allegro coffee that's from Chiapas, Mexico. So coffee is about, in Mexico, comes from 3 areas, and their primary plantations are in Veracruz, Oaxaca, and Chiapas. So those are the 3 places you're going to get your coffee beans from if you're getting Mexican coffees. So that's also, again, primarily, the fields were primarily worked by women. And of course, so the women, the Adelitas, when they came back from war, eventually continued working in the plantations. And they continued that tradition with the Café de Olla, which means that it got brought home into the families. And that is how it became a family a tradition. So it all ties together, and it all brings us together, and it gives us a lot to celebrate together. Let's see. Oh, and Hunger He says he likes to tell folks that he can't carry a tune in a bucket. And Air Frying Auntie is stepping away for a minute. That's fine. So we only had the one bot tonight. Probably there might have been others, but I found some advice telling me to filter out certain words, and it's that whatever it is, the first 3 dot whatever it is that they type in there. So the one that we had tonight had a different phrase. So later I can look that up and add that into those restricted words, and it prevents them from putting it out into the chat. So I'm in favor of that. And J-Dog says he loves Mexican coffee. So, and the warden is asking what's the favorite genre. I don't know if you meant someone in the chat or me. And I don't have a favorite genre because I love everything, but I do get into an awful lot of horror. I love reading horror, and I love reading old-fashioned horror, like old school Stephen King, even though he's kind of outdated a little bit. I love his old books, and I love some Clive Barker and some really old-fashioned Ray Bradbury. Genius. They were great. And I love that. I lost track. Oh yeah, and I actually, obviously, of course, I love some old English literature, which are some very old-fashioned body stories, especially when you get into like Chaucer and stuff. That's what always makes me chuckle sometimes on the internet when they're when you have like really uptight people and they're like, oh, that, you know, what would Shakespeare say? And, you know, we don't like that kind of language here. And I'm like, listen, this is actually my tea. I can 100% speak with authority that most classic literature is complete and utter trash. It's dirty stories and fart jokes. That's what classical literature is, and a lot of sex. So don't get all telling people that they're, you know, turning them down because they swore or said something that they consider obscene. That's actually unrelated, and fine literature is full of it. Restrictions on language comes from religious and societal beliefs, not from literature. I'm going to take another big bite, so come up with some commentary there. Really good. Oh, and J-Dog says they also love Ray Bradbury, and they love the Martian Chronicles in high school. Me too. That was awesome. And Mediator says Stephen King was the first big novelist they started with when they were about 8 or so. Yep. And Sheena's Ketovore Life is having black coffee. So, and I saw that Air Frying Andy says they're a Marvel fan and cooking shows. We won't do spoilers yet, but boy, the new Spider-Man movie kind of is going to get you in the feels if you are a comics person. Boy, they did a great job with it, which is good since they really, Spider-Man 3, no, I don't know what they were thinking when they made that one, but yeah, so the new Spider-Man, man, I 100%, you should see it if you haven't seen it, if you haven't gone yet. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to tell you. What questions do you have? Right now we seem to be talking about books. Air Frying Annie says they love Aaron French. And, oh, and the Warden says they love Chaucer. I do too. But, and I'll just tell you, when I get on my high horse and I'm talking about their body stories, the Miller story is my favorite. I'm like, what were they thinking? That was a hilarious story. And for those of you who don't know, it's the Miller is the, you know, he's literally, that's what they call it. You know, they go by their career names. But the Miller finds that someone has been having an affair with his wife and comes to the window every night to exchange kisses with her. So he locks his wife in the bathroom and sticks his butt out the window, and the guy who's been having an affair with his wife smooches his butt. And that is the whole premise behind the Miller story. Yes. So that's why I say, don't get on me about the high class of classic literature because it's just not there. But it's a great story, and it's hilarious to think of them sitting around the campfire telling each other these stories. I love it, every single bit of it. The other part of literature that I am super fond of is poetry, which a lot of people are suddenly like, poetry? Oh. And that's because they think about college where they got too serious about the poetry and made you learn about iambic pentameter and rhyming, and it must be exactly just so. And I know, and as a literature person, I can tell you all of those rules make me tired. I like crazy poetry. I like what's called free form poetry, and it's the poetry that people love to dig on as being awful, but it's brilliant. It's artsy and creative, and the reason it is that people think they get upset about it is because they think it has no rules, but the rules are that it doesn't have rules. Freeform poetry is more about storytelling in poetry mode, and you'll find that either people are using phrasing that uses sound or rhythm or things to carry the poetry through, or it can sometimes be visual. Like if you see some freeform poetry, sometimes the print will be handwriting and it'll use big and small font, or it'll slant down the page, or it'll get real big in the middle and use a lot of exclamation points or crazy out of context punctuation. So and it just really gives you the idea, the punching of the emotion behind it. And so that is a fun kind of poetry. I'm taking another bite, guys, and then I'll read some comments and see where we're at. But it's really good. Sometimes when I have my Sunday night treats, I think, I'm not going to finish this because it waits while, and afterwards, after the stream ends, I do like all my cleanup and running around. But this savory hits the spot. That is much more my my style. And after the stream ends, it's not going to be pretty. I'm going to go to town on this and I'm going to devour it. It's so good. And when we've talked about pairing in the past, savory is a perfect pair for the Café de Olla because the Café de Olla is already sweet and spicy. The two play off together perfectly. When we're drinking this in the family, it's often paired with a lot of foods. Often late night dinners, your chilaquiles, your soups and stews, all of those things that you would normally have, and often with breakfast. Sometimes we'll have your chili rellenos. A lot of times it's tamales. You name it. It's party, it's food. We've had a long work day. And all of those savory, spicy dishes really play off well with the Café de Olla. You can also go desserty, but honestly, not a real sweet dessert. If anything, you're going to actually just transform the coffee and have that by adding a slightly spiced whipped cream. And like I said, a lot of times they put the nightcap so that you would have the tequila and then a whipped cream on top, and that would be the whole thing. But if you're having food, they're not going to sit down and have the Café de Olla with a piece of cake. That would be very unpleasant because it would be sweet on sweet, and then the spices is going to collide with like the cake and the glazes or the frostings. So you're really going to be good with savory. And if you have a Café de Olla in a restaurant that makes it, they're going to be serving it at breakfast with your omelets and your quiches and your salads. So it's definitely a savory pairing. So the next thing, I just want to bring up two more things, is Is there a request for something for us to make with our coffee next week? Next week we're going to do the Chemex, and that's a pour over brew. It's the we've talked about the V60 last time and that being like the number one pour over. Chemex is the other big dog in the game. So it's the other big dog. It's really awesome, and we're going to get into that. So it's a pour over. Let me know what kind of recipe you might want to do. I was almost tempted to say we should make some bacon wrapped cheese sticks, but I also know that a lot of people are doing the BBBE. And so if there's a BBBE recipe you want to do and you want me to air fry, throw it out there and we'll do it. We could do little meatballs, you name it. We could do all kinds of things. I also wouldn't mind sometime doing a soup. We could do the ramen, and I'll make the viral Keto Asian flavors noodles. Those would be good. Okay. Yeah, we're all calling each other nerds, but it's true, we are. And then Hungry Heath makes that old joke of that we invented poetry to woo women. And I'm just gonna see, now you've pushed a button. That's actually technically incorrect. Poetry was not invented to woo women, although popular use once we hit the Romance era was to woo women. Poetry was actually invented to entertain. It was actually meant to be very jokey, and it was meant for jesters to entertain royalty. So now you've had an extra nerd fact. So Hungry Heath, your jokes tonight, I don't know. I'm gonna lead into my joke then and say, like, it just seems like you're being bratty, and brats usually are asking for spankings. So I think, Shelly has a task. So, but yes. And then J-Dog says he's proud to be a nerd. Me too. I love being a geek and always have, and I can't see that changing. Before I end this and dive in, I want to remind you that next week also we'll be doing giveaways. So, and the flavors that I will have to give away is banana, natural strawberry, keto chow, eggnog, pumpkin spice caramel, root beer float, snickerdoodle, and strawberry. So one thing I noticed is that since all of our channels, like I know that Hungry Heath is going to have a Keto Chow giveaway. If you are a member of the Keto Village Facebook group, they are having massive Keto Chow giveaways. So, and I believe Serious Keto has a Keto Chow giveaway going. So pay attention, because if you want to win some Keto Chow, it is on right now. It is out there, and the odds of winning are pretty good in a lot of different channels, because they really just let us all have at it. And it doesn't seem like we're all getting the same flavor, so lots of variety too. Then on top of the Keto Chow giveaways, which by the way, I think I'll be pulling like 5 or 6 winners next weekend, so really good chances, really good. But in addition to that, my friend Bill, who owns the Flatiron Pepper Company, has sponsored a little giveaway, and I've got one of their seasoning blends, which is the roasted garlic, chipotle, and toasted onion, and then their sweet heat, which is the Scotch bonnet, ancho pepper, and red bell pepper. So next week will be super exciting. And Cool Kid Keto says he calls himself Keto Goth, and I know a lot of goths who would disagree, and that's okay, but I consider goths geek adjacent, because they are usually pretty very creative, and also really a lot of goths are very intelligent and very good with science and knowledge and critical thinking. So I feel adjacent, but also much cooler. Whereas, well, I'm the opposite of cool. That's okay with me. So. Oh, and Christy is mentioning that Serious Keto is requesting that people who have had keto chow not enter his giveaways, which makes perfect sense to me. I just think that went for, and that's good because he's trying to encourage new people to experience it, and that's good. But I also think that sometimes when people who've already had keto chow, if you enter and you win a giveaway, it's because you're involved in the communities, and that allows you not to have to put in your own money to share out with people in public. I give a lot of keto chow packets to people so that they can try it, and so sometimes a little freebie now and then helps a lot with that. It helps offset it. So, oh, and Lisa says they're excited for the seasonings. Me too. That'll be awesome. I'm looking forward to that. So. I'm going to take another big bite because I can't wait, even though we end in 10 minutes. Oh no. And J-Dog says he just got an alert that Bob Saget, the very famous comedian, he was on Full House, and I think he hosted some of those American Funniest Videos. He's been an actor in a lot of stuff, has just passed away. He was only 65. Man, 2022 coming in with the hard punches, because also Sidney Poitier passed away this week. I'm a big fan. I love so many of his movies. Bob Saget is amazing. He was a huge influence in comedy for a very long time. So that's a tough one to take, and that's a lot of memories, from life. Wow, that's some tough news. So, well, I can't imagine 65. That is so young, but it is the way it's going. That's a hard thing that I've been having to deal with too, not just celebrities, but like, I kind of wish The Office would stop, because we have our internal news portal. So, and it comes up when you open your web browser, and they've got every day the features, and they keep talking about everybody who has passed away. So every day you log in and you have to read about which of your coworkers died, especially because of the pandemic. And it is starting to really be hard, because you just don't want to get in there and you don't want to see all of the people. And so I know they mean well, and I know it's because they want to, the fact that even though we're a huge company, but we've got a very good family feel. Like, people who work in my department, we've known each other forever. Even, it doesn't matter what state we're in, all of the names become familiar, and we move around a lot. Oh yeah, and J-Dog has brought up, they liked Sidney Poitier in The Heat of the Night. That was the first thing I said. I very clearly, that they call me Tibbs. Mr. Tibbs. He was brilliant, and not only was he an amazing advocate, he was groundbreaking in the episode where they were interviewing the guy that they were pretty sure was the murderer, and I can't remember what he said to him, but it was really insulting. And then he got all offended because they were interrogating him, and the guy who was being interrogated gave him a slap, and Sidney Poitier, as Mr. Tibbs, wailed back and slapped him right back. And that was like the first time in anything that we had ever seen a black man break out and smack down a white guy. And they made a big point about pointing that out. Hey, just a few years, if this were XYZ, I could have had you hauled away for that and killed. Well, yeah, thank goodness that has changed. So, but in the heat of the night was really full of horrendous racism, and they just took it head on in dealing with it. And I thought that was so groundbreaking. And that was pretty awesome. Oh, and Air Frying Auntie agrees with me that whole display is pretty horrible. So, and so I'm sorry to hear that about your dad. But yeah, so there's been quite a lot. Yeah, Endicott, that was the name. When they were interviewing Endicott and his orchids in the greenhouse. I loved In the Heat of the Night. It was great. I also loved Sidney Poitier's original Cry the Beloved Country. Although I will say that when they remade it with James Earl Jones at the very end, when he breaks down and does the voiceover of reading the poem that goes with it, that actually brought me to tears. I don't know, it was just so emotion evoking, and James Earl Jones really brought the emotion into that. The rest of the movie, I would say the original with Sidney Poitier was much more gripping for me, but the way James Earl Jones did the ending in the movie, in the remake, man, that was a punch to the gut. So I have to say, this sure is a lot of actors. And of course, right before 2022, Betty White, man, she was just another one who was amazing. And if you like looking up like clips and stuff like that, you should definitely take a look at when she did the clip with Ryan Reynolds, because that was hilarious. Yeah. So Sheena, I do feel really bad for you, because I know that sucks, because even when I wasn't no longer that close to my biological mother, when she passed, it was hard to contend with. And then shortly thereafter, my dad passed away, and then weirdly they had passed away before my grandparents, and it was everybody all in a very short time span, and it's a lot to go through. That grieving process is extremely painful. So all I can tell you is, I know that your biological family is gone, but at least we're here as your friends to support you. So if you need like an ear or someone just to be nice for a minute, or someplace to vent, or we are definitely here for you. Feel free to reach out. I don't think anyone on here would be like, oh no, don't message me, keep to yourself. That's not the way it works in the radical geek world. But we got you, at least for this. And yeah, tough times, but reach out when you need that extra support, because during that kind of time we all need that. So yep. And I see Rhonda Clark here. So, Well, here we are, guys. We've reached the end of the live stream, and I didn't have any emergencies that took us away early. So, you let me know. Feel free to comment later or ping me on Facebook or whatever. Let me know if you would prefer us to do some meatballs next week, or if you would prefer us to do the bacon wrapped cheese sticks. I think both sound very appealing to me, and I'm kind of like not excited by the cakes and stuff. Although I do tell you, someone posted the Dunkin' Donuts sous vide egg treats from, and they were in the shape of donuts. And I think I might take like this frittata type recipe, and I think I'm gonna make them in my little silicone donut molds because I think that is just hilarious. So I'll let you know if I do that. I'll show you later in the week. I've got a lot of flex time thanks to my work weekend, so I'll have some time to fool around in the kitchen. Hungry Heath, you are definitely a brat tonight, but yes, moist, 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 delicious meatballs. So, meatballs are fried cheese sticks. Place your votes and let me know. I'll talk to you guys all later. Enjoy your evening. I hope that you all get to try a spiced coffee, and I'll see you all real soon. And I'll probably see a lot of you tomorrow morning on Keto on the Couch. So I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.